Good evening, everybody. Today, we will be playing another version of Nahiri Boom that was posted to me. I was going to play a couple of different decks today, but due to scheduling errors, card acquisitions, crap like that, I'm going to be playing this version of this list. I do like it. It differs quite a bit from our previous list. We have additional hard removal in the form of Oust. We have Maze Mind Tome to help get to our cards. Sweltering Suns as a main deck sweeper of choice, in addition to an additional Wrath of God. 3 mana Gideon instead of 3 mana Chandra. 5 mana Gideon as some top end. And of course, the whole Nahiri Emrakul package. The sideboard differs quite a bit, but I'm not going to ramble too much. Let's go ahead and take this into a Modern League. Was it not going to let me? Because it says that I don't have all the cards? What card am I missing? None of the cards are marked. I can't submit. Alright, hang on. Let me restart Moto. Now it's complaining there's just versions of cards that I don't have. Did that switch to Tron? Okay, hang on a sec. For a second there, this switched to say Tron, and I was really confused and concerned. Alright. Everybody knows Moto is quality programming. Alright. Round 1, here we go. We'll play first. Yes, this seems like an excellent starting hand. We will keep. And we'll start Sacred Foundry, untapped. I do want to leave up Bolt. If it's Burn, I want to take out their 1-drop. If it's, you know, Ponza or anything that plays Dorks, I want to be able to take out their 1-drop. Well, looks kind of like Burn to me. Opponent haggles, so it is Dredge. They discard Stinkweed Imp, and they mill 5 relatively inconsequential cards. Okay, well, we'll hold on to this Bolt. I feel bad about shocking, but could have been worse, I suppose. We'll play Flagstones. We're going to Boom. This is so we can get an additional red source and interrupt our opponent's mana. So get a Sacred Foundry, tapped, pass the turn. Opponent not having any Dredgers in grave is good for us. Disrupting their mana doesn't ward them off indefinitely, especially when they play things like Shriekhorn. We untap and draw a Bolt, so let's go ahead and pillage. We do have Wraths and Sweltering Suns in the deck, as well as Bolts for removal, so we're not, like, completely dead to what our opponent's doing or anything like that. When it mills a Bloodghast, no third land, it would appear. They attack us for 1. We go to 17. Untap, we get a Maze Mind Tome. So play Cascading Cataracts, Cleansing Wildfire. Go Ramping, we'll get another red source. We draw Sweltering Suns, which makes me feel a lot better about what we're doing here. And now we can start looking for Planeswalkers to gain advantage. Relic of Progenitus, putting it on top. Pass the turn. Alright, now we got Wrath and Graveyard Exile. Seems great. Opponent mills an Ox, dredges a Creeping Chill, which means they are going to get back a lot of creatures out of their grave. But I mean, we can Sweltering Suns and then exile if we want. Okay, we draw a Relic, go Scrying. Lanes to the bottom. Play Relic. Honestly, I kind of just want to, like, Bolt, and cycle. Yeah, I'm going to do this. I don't want them to get back their prized Amalgam, and they do have a Bloodghast in the grave. They currently will not have a Dredger, though they will be able to discard one due to hand size. We have another Relic in the main deck somewhere, but this lets us deal with the prized Amalgam. Plus we drew a land. Pass the turn. And now we can start drawing extra cards. We have a sweeper for backup. Yeah, even if our opponent has a land, they're probably better off discarding the hand size. Okay, we draw Boom and Bust. So draw an extra card. Cleansing Wildfire. Cast Cleansing Wildfire. Go Ramping. Draw Nahiri. Boom. Indestructible land. And this is why I think they were better off discarding like a Stinkweed Imp just to start the Dredge train rolling, because they didn't know if we had extra land destruction or not. Okay, they play a Copperline Gorge. We untap. Gonna draw an extra card, because why not? Technically should have drawn for turn before I did this, but... Okay, we get a Cleansing Wildfire. You know, I wonder how many basics they're running. Let's go ahead and do this. See if they've got another basic somewhere in that deck. Okay. I was thinking they usually ran 3 basics. I'm not used to seeing Dredge playing basic swamps, though, so we're going to play Nahiri. Uptick Nahiri. I am going to discard our other Nahiri here. We draw Flagstones, pass the turn. I think we've pretty well locked up this game. Okay. Uptick Nahiri. I'm going to discard Flagstones of Trocaire. Bolt is pretty nice. So hopefully if our opponent has like a hasty creature... I was trying to think if they have any. They would have to have like haggled on our end step and gotten a guy for Bolt to have actually mattered, I think. But... Okay, opponent gets a Narcomoeba. And they get back a Prized Amalgam. Alright, we untap. Opponent discards to hand size. We draw a Temple. Alt Nahiri. We're just going to go get Emrakul. We can keep our opponent off of their only land. Go to combat. Attack for 15. Make our opponent sack all of their permanents. Okay, opponent goes to 8. Play a new Nahiri. Uptick. I'm going to discard Temple of Triumph. I don't think we need to scry here. Okay, well, if I've got another one that I draw, I'll play it and scry. Gemstone Caverns to the bottom. Pass the turn. Pick up Emrakul, which we will discard next turn to shuffle back in. And then the turn after, we will hit them with a second Emrakul. Okay, opponent dredges, hits nothing of consequence. I don't want to cycle this Sweltering Suns, even though it is kind of just a fog against our opponent. Okay, uptick Nahiri. Discard Emrakul. Ooh, Gideon. Gideon's awesome because it's an additional thing that has to be killed versus any aggro deck. Okay, Emblem. Pass the turn. And our opponent has to somehow kill us from 17, or they lose. Okay. Awesome. So versus Dredge, I want Timely Reinforcements, I want Anger of the Gods, and I want 2 more Relics. I think we're okay to take out probably Torch of Defiance, a Johnny Vengeant. Like, we have so much sideboard for this matchup, it's not even funny. With the additional sweepers and the exile sweepers, I'm gonna drop one of our 4 mana Wraths, because I, like, Anger of the Gods is so good versus Dredge. You know, it doesn't completely remove our Day of Judgment stuff, but I think I'm okay going down a Lightning Bolt. I forgot to add all matching full art Lightning Bolts. Makes me feel bad. You know what? Maybe I do go down Sweltering Suns here. I'm gonna go down an additional Bolt. We don't need as much single target removal because Dredge doesn't usually make 1 threat at a time. Oust is also potentially bad because ousting something like a Narcomoeba or a Silver Smote Ghoul or a Prized Amalgam means that they're just going to dredge it immediately again. Also, ousting a Dredger means they dredge more Dredgers into the grave. So it's a great delay tactic. Maybe that means Bolt is better, because Bolt also kills everything. But if they get to the, like, if we get to, like, an awkward portion of the game where putting a Dredger into, like, they have to cast a Dredger and we put it into the grave with Bolt, Oust is actually better. This hand is very close. If this was a mountain, this hand would be awesome. I think I am going to mulligan, though. Okay, yeah, this hand is way better. I'm going to keep this, and I'm going to put back Gideon. Opponent starts Blood Crypt. And they pass. Looks like they're setting up a haggle here. We draw Nahiri, so we're going to play Needle Verge Pathway on red. Pass the turn. Okay. Opponent haggles. Discarding Imp. And they Creeping Chill us. No creatures that they can get back yet, but there will be some amalgams in our very near future. If my opponent can get a good dredge this turn, we might be in trouble. I'm not going to really feel safe until I get a sweeper. No reason to bolt here, I guess. Draw Gideon. Gideon's nice. So we have 2 options. We can either boom and attempt to interrupt our opponent's mana more, or we can Cleansing Wildfire ourselves. My natural instinct here is to boom, because my opponent has no dredgers in the grave. They'd have to have another haggle to put one in the grave as well. So I guess let's do that. Let's boom. Cleansing Wildfire. If my opponent has a haggle, Cleansing Wildfire on ourself would be way better here. So, get a Sacred Foundry tapped. Pass the turn. Okay, it does not appear that our opponent has a haggle. And they don't have like a Cathartic Reunion unless they drew it this turn. Okay. We untap, we draw a Mountain. Mountain is great. We can Cleansing Wildfire ourselves just to cycle. It's really not terrible. It's not great. I would much rather be using that on our opponent, but drawing a Timely Reinforcements is pretty good. Okay, opponent untaps. They play a Forest. They pass. We untap. Draw a Maze Mind Tome. Well, let's go ahead and pillage. Pass the turn. Opponent has shown that they have no 1 or 2 mana plays here that matter. That's the awkward thing about sideboarding and Dredge is frequently, like, your Nature's Claims and Ancient Grudges and stuff, like, you need them in order to win versus the hate, right? But at the same time, frequently they make your, like, good combo hands, or what would normally be a good combo hand, really bad. Okay, we're going to tick up Nahiri. I'm actually not going to discard. I like my whole hand here. Maybe I should have discarded Tome there to see if we could hit a 5th land for Gideon. Because if we land big Gideon, we're basically fine. Untap, draw a second Nahiri, uptick Nahiri, discard Nahiri, play Plains, play Gideon. Uptick on our opponent, pass the turn. Oh, worth noting, this is the only Gideon that does not become an indestructible soldier. This Gideon can be murdered. I don't think it's relevant versus Dredge, but it's something that if you play this deck, you need to be aware of. 5 mana Gideon can be murdered because he is not indestructible. Alright, well we have lethal between Emrakul and Gideon that is exactly 21 damage. My opponent discards a Stinkweed Imp, we draw Gideon of the Trials, Alt Nahiri, get Emrakul, animate Gideon, go to combat, attack, Annihilator trigger, and the game is over. Match 1 firmly in our pocket. Alright, let's move on to game 2. I just got a notification. Thank you, Jblades, for subscribing on YouTube. You are our 520th subscriber. Alright, round 2, here we go. We'll play first. Alright, we got Bolt, we got Boom. We need to draw some other stuff, but I think this is fine. I'm going to shock Sacred Founder here just to leave up Lightning Bolt. And, of course, to make my opponent afraid of Mana Tithe. Okay, opponent starts Raging Ravine, so this is certainly just like regular Jund. Play Cascading Cataracts, we'll go ahead and boom. Pass the turn. Now we just need to draw any value-generating spell, so Maze Mind Tome would be fantastic. Another land destruction spell would be great. Okay, opponent plays a Wooded Foothills, wisely guarding their lands. Play Sacred Foundry tapped. Pass the turn. If I get Thought Seized, I might just bolt my opponent's face. Unless, of course, they're Jund Death Shadow, in which case that would be the wrong thing to do. But if they take Emrakul and they shuffle everything back in, I'm not that worried about it. Okay, they do fetch up an Overgrown Tomb. I kind of want to see them play Dark Confidant, just so that we can immediately kill it. There it is. Dark Confidant. Jund's Natural Lightning Rod. We untap. Maze Mind Tome. Maze Mind Tome is kind of extra good here. Play Tome, pass the turn. Now we can start drawing multiple cards a turn. If this draws a Maelstrom Pulse, that's actually really good. Or a, what would you call it? Like Assassin's Trophy Abrupt Decay style thing. If this is a Liliana, we will discard Emrakul, but we're going to draw first, because we don't necessarily want to draw either of these cards. Kolagon's Command, picking up Confidant, making us lose our Maze Mind Tome. Okay, Nahiri is excellent. So we untap, we draw Oust. Oust is nice. So play Nahiri, uptick, discard Emrakul, we draw a Mountain. Play Mountain, pass the turn. Opponent plays a Bloodstained Mire, cracks Bloodstained Mire, gets a Blood Crypt, plays Confidant, plays Confidant. Alright. We untap. We draw Chandra. Chandra's excellent. Uptick Nahiri. We will discard Needle Verge Pathway. Oh, man. We could just Armageddon if we want right now. I mean, what would our opponent even do? They'd draw a bunch of extra cards. They could attack for 4. We'd go down to 1 land, though, and it would be a little bit of a problem. Alright, we'll take the safer route. Oust a Confidant. Play Chandra. Downtick to kill the other Confidant. Pass the turn. Now, both of our Planeswalkers necessitate removal. We've stopped our opponent from drawing extra cards. Opponent Bloodbraid Elves into Dark Confidant. They can attack and kill Chandra, but if they do that, we're going to ult and get Emrakul, and they're going to sack their whole board. I think they have to attack Nahiri to stop her from ulting. I don't think they can attack Chandra. They saw us discard Emrakul, so they know we have it, too. Yep, they have to attack Nahiri. Oh boy, that's awkward. Alright, they hit Nahiri for 3, she goes to 5, we untap. We draw a Relic of Progenitus. So, uptick Chandra for damage. No! There goes Emrakul! What? I can't cast Emrakul. That is unfortunate. Alright, new plan. Exile here. Armageddon. They can attack and kill Chandra, but we have a looting engine and a relic we can play. So, not to mention, our opponent is actually in danger of dying to their own Confidant. Or getting low enough life total that they're not going to be able to do anything about it. I can't believe we exiled Emrakul! Oh, the odds are so low. I will say, though, blowing up all lands on the board except one of our own and keeping 2 Planeswalkers feels pretty good. Opponent kills Chandra, because otherwise they're in huge danger. We draw Pillage. Do I exile Confidant? I mean, it leaves Nahiri open to dying to Bolt, but she would die to Bolt anyway. So we'll exile Confidant, because Confidant greatly increases our opponent's chances of drawing lands. We don't need Nahiri as much anymore. Obviously, we want her to stick around because we want to be drawing our own mana and spells that matter. Opponent does draw a land. Does not have the Lightning Bolt, it would appear. We draw Flagstones. Uptick. Discard Pillage. Boom and bust. Alright, boom. Oh, we can't. We don't have the mana. Alright, man, so many of our opponent's lands are in the grave. Make him exile a card. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent untaps, they draw. No lands. Nahiri will get out of bolt range, and our opponent scoops it up. So versus Jund, I do want Celestial Purge. Relic is not as important. Anger of the Gods also not as important. I don't have anything that's white or blue. Awakened Inferno is actually kind of bad. I do want Timely Reinforcements because Timely Reinforcements generates a lot of value off of 1 card, which is what Jund is trying to do, so it can help us catch up. I actually think I'm going to drop Sweltering Suns. It doesn't kill a whole lot versus Jund. Like, it kills Confidant, but it doesn't hit their man-land, which shouldn't be a problem. But it also doesn't hit things like Tarmogoyf and some of Jund's other threats. So what do we take out versus Jund? I need to take out 3 cards. We can risk taking out a Lightning Bolt because we brought in more single-target removal. I think I can take out 1 Relic. I like having access to a little bit of Grave Hate versus Jund because they do things like Kolaghan's Command, and they have Tarmogoyf, which counts cards in the graveyard, things like that. I could cut a land. I don't know if that's right. I'm going to cut a Gideon of the Trials. He seems like our least useful Planeswalker against them. Like, he's still good, but he's Abrupt Decayable. Not that I think they run Abrupt Decay over Assassin's Trophy anymore, but it could potentially matter. Alright, I will keep this. My opponent is on the play. We do have a Bolt, which means if they do start with a Confidant opener, we can actually deal with it before they get to draw a card. So, start Sacred Foundry untapped, pass the turn. They play Bloodstained Mire, they crack it. They get a Blood Crypt. Wrenn and 6. Okay, Wrenn and 6 is a little bit of a problem. I am going to Lightning Bolt Wrenn and 6, because if we top deck another Bolt, within the next couple of turns we can deal with it. My opponent constantly picking up lands is kind of annoying because it sort of invalidates our primary game plan a little bit. We can keep them off of lands for a while. I am going to keep them off of 3 because some of their most powerful spells against us are on 3, like Liliana, stuff that we would have a little bit of trouble dealing with. My opponent can just keep picking up their lands, obviously. Man, I wish Wrenn and 6 started at 2 loyalty instead of 3. But, okay, we draw Relic. Relic's kind of fun, because we can stop them from picking up their fetch lands. Cleansing Wildfire ourself. Man, doing this on an indestructible land just feels so good. Get a mountain. We draw Emrakul. Play Relic. Pass the turn. Okay. We'd like to draw something to deal with Wrenn and 6. Opponent plays a Swamp. Plays Seasoned Pyromancer. Okay, they discard Liliana of the Veil and Lightning Bolt to make 2 1/1s. They uptick Wrenn and 6. Okay, make them exile. We untap. We draw Cleansing Wildfire. I still think activating this on ourself is correct here. Jund doesn't run that many basics, but okay. Play a Plains. Exile Bolt. I'm kind of the point where I want to draw a bust. I feel like our opponent having Wrenn and 6 was pretty good against our opener. Okay, opponent attacks for 4. We take 4. Go to 14. I will exile Relic if my opponent plays and activates a fetch land. Okay, they play Liliana of the Veil. They uptick. I'm going to discard Emrakul. I wouldn't mind drawing some of these cards again. Okay, they activate Wrenn and 6. We're going to draw an extra card here. They can play and activate Bloodstained Mire now. Ooh, we just drew Celestial Purge. So the question is, now do we hit Wrenn and 6 or do we hit Liliana? Well, we have to make that decision now, and we're losing Day of Judgment. I think we hit Wrenn and 6. Okay. We untap. We usually operate at a pretty low hand size anyway. We draw Flagstone. So, play Flagstones, pass the turn. But unless we have some really good top decks here, we're probably in some severe trouble. I think we've lost this game simply because our opponent was not... We weren't able to lock our opponent under anything. And they're going to have too much of a clock here. I'm pretty sure they just activate Raging Ravine, yeah. Okay, opponent hits us for 8, we go to 6. We untap. We draw Nahiri, and we still lose? Yeah. Okay. Do I want to keep in Relic because of Wrenn and 6? Question is, what do I take out? I think just 1 is fine. Alright, we'll play first. Being on the play is a big deal. No 2-mana spell. I think we can do better. This is not a lot better. Did my opponent mulligan? Oops. My opponent kept 7. I'm going to go to 5. Alright, well this is turn 2 land destruction. I'm going to put back Gideon and Plains. So the only disruption they could have for our first spell would be Thoughtseize. And it has to be Thoughtseize because Inquisition cannot take Boom and Bust. Okay, we scry a land to the bottom. Pass the turn. I'm a big fan of the Scrylands in decks that don't play a ton of 1-drops, or that don't play a ton of proactive 1-drops. Like if you have 1-mana removal, like Bolt and such, okay, opponent has Inquisition, they have to take Timely, we still get to Boom. But we're basically out of resources after that, which means we have to top deck like nothing but good spells. We also have to hope our opponent's kind of like has a landlight hand to give us a little extra time. Play Cascading Cataracts. Hey! No barking, that's the roommate. That's Talon. Big sissy. He was napping and he heard a noise and it scared him. Go up and check it out. Sometimes certain noises will scare him awake. And he's sneaking up the stairs. I wish I could angle the camera so you could see, because he like army crawled up the first half of the staircase and then cranked his head around to try and see. He's so funny. Alright, we draw Gemstone Caverns. We'll play Darksteel Citadel. Cleansing Wildfire. Ourself. Gonna get a second red source here. Okay, we draw Sacred Foundry. Pass the turn. I'd really like for my opponent to cast another Thoughtseize or an Inquisition, because that'd be a waste of their mana currently. Alright, opponent plays a Confidant. So removal for Confidant would be good. Nahiri. Play Nahiri. We're going to loot away Caverns. We get a Flagstones. I'm going to play Flagstones in case my opponent plays Liliana. Opponent reveals Bloodbraid Elf. We know they have Bloodbraid. Opponent has a Verdant Catacombs, goes to combat. Attacks Nahiri, this means they do not have an Assassin's Trophy or a Maelstrom Pulse. They crack Verdant. They get a Stomping Ground untapped. Kolaghan's command, tune in Nahiri, make us discard Sacred Foundry. Okay, so the reason we played Flagstones and not Sacred Foundry is because Flagstones survives a boom and bust. Okay, uptick Nahiri. We will discard our planes. Draw Maze Mine Tome. So play Tome. We're going to go ahead and draw because we would like to hit removal. Okay, we hit a land. Play the land. Pass the turn. We are now at 6 mana, so if we draw Boom and Bust, it's less good because they just drew Wrenn and 6. I think, though, my opponent, if they have a land, would play Bloodbraid Elf because that would guarantee value and that they would be able to get rid of Nahiri. If they don't have a land, they play Wrenn and 6 100%. They Maelstrom Pulse Maze Mine Tome and attack Nahiri. Okay, if we can draw Boom and Bust this turn, it's amazing. Relic of Progenitus. We could nuke 3 lands out of the grave and get a redraw at potentially something better. Right, we'll start Relic, cycle Relic, get another Flagstones. So I'm going to loot away Flagstones, get a Bolt. Okay. Bolt Confidant, so I don't want them drawing more cards. I'd like to bolt my... you know what? I'm going to let them... I'm going to see what they flip off of Dark Confidant, because if they flip a 4-drop, they die. They hit Abrupt Decay, so our opponent is playing Abrupt Decay, which is why I sided out Gideon. My opponent can play a Bloodbraid here, and they have to. Opponent goes to 4. They wheel into a Thoughtseize. They choose not to cast it wisely. Okay. But my opponent cannot stop their Dark Confidant from triggering here. So they have to attack and kill Nahiri. We untap. They play a land tapped. Opponent is playing around Lightning Bolt as best they can. We draw Celestial Purge. Alright, pass the turn. And no matter what, they have to let Dark Confidant trigger. So if they hit any non-land spell, they lose. I'm really glad I didn't just immediately bolt that Confidant, because getting a little help from Bob is something you need to do occasionally. Alright, I'm going to restart the client and we'll get into round 3. Alrighty, round 3, here we go. Okay, we are on the draw for round 3, which is not good. We do have a pretty good opener, so we're going to keep. I will oust a Mana Dork if my opponent plays one. Opponent starts Cavern of Souls on Human. Okay, they did mulligan. Opponent plays Champion. So start Sacred Foundry and oust Champion. And the reason that we're playing Sacred Foundry is because we want to boom on turn 2, and that is our only red-white duel. Okay, opponent plays a Thalia, which does slow us down quite a bit. We'll play a Mountain, see if we can't hide what we are for a little bit longer. Maybe get our opponent to crack that Horizon Canopy, that'd be great. Okay, opponent chooses Illusion for unclaimed territory. So it would appear that they are going to... Oh, they play a Thalia's Lieutenant. Well, we are going to need a Sweeper if anything we do is to matter here. Land destruction here I don't think is going to help. It might, but I think we have to bolt in order to slow our opponent down. I think we have to take out this Champion of the Parish, because this is going to be like our only opportunity to do so. Our opponent is either going to top deck a land or a creature, or technically an Aether Vial. So play Plains, bolt Champion. Pass the turn. I'm still trying to hide what we are, because there's a potential for our opponent to crack Horizon Canopy here. Nice! Alright, they get a land anyway. Unclaimed territory on Illusion. Second Thalia's Lieutenant. Alright, well we need to draw a Wrath, and in a hurry. We're dead exactly, and we can't interact. So I'm not going to show my opponent anything else. His opponent only saw red lands, white lands, and Oust and Bolt. So they don't know what we are yet. I'm going to bring in Timely Reinforcements and Anger of the Gods. I'm going to go down. Relics of Progenitus we don't need. And what else is bad against them? I actually might want Chandra just for an additional sweeper, but she's so expensive. And we have enough other good planeswalkers, I don't think we need her. I think I'm going to go down... I don't know. I don't want to remove any of the sweepers. The land destruction actually seems like the worst. So maybe I get rid of a Boom and a Cleansing Wildfire. Because they're going to have plays every single turn of the game. This hand is terrible. We'll mulligan. This hand is technically serviceable, but if we don't draw red mana, we are screwed. Let's see if my opponent kept her mulliganed. My opponent kept 7. I guess we gotta go to 5. Alright, we'll keep. Put back Gemstone Caverns because we're on the play. And put back Rugged Prairie. Start Sacred Foundry tapped. Pass the turn. Opponent starts Cavern. Names Human. And Aether Vial. Aether Vial is a big problem. So, boom. Kill Cavern. Now we want to draw Pillage. The reason I kept in Pillage and not Cleansing Wildfire or Boom is specifically for Aether Vial. If my opponent kept a one-lander with Aether Vial, I really want to draw Pillage. Play a mountain, pass the turn. We drew Nahiri, which is great. We have no instant speed interaction whatsoever. So hopefully our opponent's 2-drops are not Thalia. Opponent plays a Horizon Canopy. And a Kite Sail Freebooter. Freebooter is pretty bad for us, pretty good for our opponent. Opponent takes Anger of the Gods. So they're setting up for... Okay. Well, Anger of the Gods is no longer good against our opponent because of this Champion of the Parish. Okay, we have 3 options. We can oust something. Ousting Kite Sail Freebooter doesn't do anything because Anger of the Gods doesn't sweep away this champion. So if we oust something, we oust champion. I could play Nahiri... And I could downtick an exile champion, and then next turn oust Kite Sail and maybe wipe the board. But Nahiri dies in the process. I could play Nahiri and I could downtick on Aether Vial, and I could play Nahiri and I could uptick, technically. A Hard Wrath might be what we're looking for. I have a feeling that ousting is correct. And I'm not going to play a land because I don't want my opponent to know that I can play this Nahiri. The only thing that they know is that we're holding it. Depending on how our opponent plays, they might play in such a way that Nahiri downtick is really good. They could also just Meddling Mage Nahiri, and we'd be in trouble. Okay, opponent plays a Mantis Rider, putting a counter on Thalia's Lieutenant. They upticked Aether Vial to 3. Opponent's going to attack us for 7. Humans, I think, is one of our worst possible matchups. Because frequently they don't care if we blow up lands, their threats are so cheap, they grow really huge, so they're outside the range of damage removal. I think unless we draw Wrath, we're in trouble. Opponent's deciding how to attack. If they don't attack with Kite Sail Freebooter, Reflector Mage, just to pump. Okay. So we take 8. We untap, we draw, Needle Verge Pathway. We can play Nahiri, we can downtick to get Anger back, but we die exactly. We can play Nahiri, we uptick, we die exactly. So we have the only line that even keeps us alive is to play Nahiri, downtick on Thalia's Lieutenant, pass the turn. We have to draw Wrath, and our opponent has to be out of threats for us to even remotely remain in this game. Technically, Timely Reinforcements might also allow us to survive, but any extra point of damage here and we die. Okay, opponent cracks Horizon Canopy to draw. They attack Nahiri and us. Okay. That does prevent us from getting an additional draw to Wrath. Draw Maze Mind Tome. No single target removal does it. So we scoop it up. Alright, moving on to round 4. Round 4, here we go. I would love to play first. No good target for Cleansing Wildfire. I think this is the fairest hand I've ever kept, but there's always the chance we run into Tron, right? And Temple of Triumph could still find us something. Wrath of God I'm going to put to the bottom. Pass the turn. Llanowar Reborn, so this is the 1/1 counters deck. Play a Mountain. Play Maze Mind Tome. Scry. Darksteel Citadel to the bottom. We wanted it on turn 2 so we could Cleansing Wildfire into a big spell on turn 3, like a Johnny, but unfortunately we didn't get it. So now I am going to be looking for a Wrath. Okay, put a plays an Inkmoth and a Throne of Geth. We untap, scry at our upkeep. Temple of Triumph to the bottom. We draw Nahiri. Cleansing Wildfire, Inkmoth Nexus, so we don't die to something silly immediately. We draw Emrakul. Play Sacred Foundry untapped so that we have access to Bolt, and pass the turn. Opponent plays another Inkmoth. Hardened Scales. Opponent is thinking about casting something. So, if they cast Walking Ballista, we can just bolt it. If they cast Hangerback Walker, we're in trouble a little bit. Something that's kind of fun to think about is if I didn't have Bolt here, I probably would have played Sacred Foundry tapped. But the fact that my opponent tanked so hard means that they're playing around Bolt. So that might have been a situation where bluffing was a real consideration. They were going to put Sacred Foundry on top. Play Sacred Foundry. Untapped. And I can either play Nahiri and uptick to discard Emrakul, or I can play Nahiri and downtick to exile Hardened Scales. I kind of like getting rid of Hardened Scales. So that's what I'm going to do this turn. It makes Bolt better removal. Our opponent would have to put counters on Inkmoth Nexus immediately to get rid of Nahiri. And we're a land destruction deck, so we're not particularly afraid of Inkmoth Nexus. Hardened Scales is also part of their best draw in order to, one-shot us with Nexus. So, I think this is fine. Okay, opponent plays Blinkmoth. I think the play here is to animate Inkmoth, turn it into a 2/2 with Blinkmoth, and kill Nahiri. If they play something else that doesn't also kill Nahiri, we're in a good spot. Okay, opponent plays Ravager. They move the counter to Ravager. Animate Inkmoth. They attack Nahiri for 1. They don't attack Nahiri? No, they do. Okay, no blocks. They don't kill Nahiri. We untap and draw Gideon. Uptick Nahiri. I should have scried first, but discard Emrakul. We draw Flagstones. So I could play Gideon, but I don't think I need to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by Lightning Bolting Ravager, because they have nowhere to put those counters. They sack it to proliferate. Oh. I guess in that case we can scry with it. Pillage. I'm going to leave Pillage on top. Interesting. Okay, Lightning Bolt fizzles. Now we play a Johnny and we uptick on Inkmoth Nexus. Because Inkmoth Nexus, they can make a 2/2 with just the lands they have on board. Blinkmoth, they would have to play something else. Okay, opponent plays a Forest. And if we resolve Gideon and have 3 active Planeswalkers, we're probably fine. Just saying. Okay, opponent plays a Scrapyard Recombiner. We untap and draw Pillage. I'm going to start by pillaging Scrapyard Recombiner. Because if my opponent animates a creature to modular onto, I'm going to downtick Nahiri and exile it. Opponent. Opponent. Oh, opponent. Alright, yep. It doesn't say non-land. Okay, uptick a Johnny on Blinkmoth Nexus. Play Relic. Pass the turn. Big oof. Big oof on the opponent's part there. Opponent plays an animation module. Plays a Llanowar Reborn, paying for animation module to get a 1/1. They can move the counter and pay another 1 to get a second 1/1. Well, this will become a 2/2, but they get a second 1/1, that is. They are going to do that, because it's the most efficient usage of their mana this turn. Okay, I'm just going to crack Relic and draw. Okay, we get a Sacred Foundry. Untap. Draw Temple of Triumph. So, uptick Nahiri. Discarding Sacred Foundry. Another Nahiri. Play Temple of Triumph. Scry. Maze Mind Tome to the bottom. I don't think we need it. Uptick a Johnny on Blink Moth. Play Chad. Uptick Chad. Taunt all of our opponent's creatures. Have him protect our other planeswalkers. Okay, opponent plays a Phyrexia's Core. 2 mana. Opponent plays a Scrapyard Recombiner. They get a animation module trigger. They make a 1/1. They can't attack there, you gotta attack Chad. Okay? They attack Chad. Chad takes 3. We untap. We draw Cleansing Wildfire. So, what do we want to do here? I think I'm going to start by wildfiring myself before we do anything else. We will use Cleansing Wildfire's ability. Get a Mountain. Flagstone's ability. Get a Sacred Foundry. Uptick Nahiri. I'm basically looking for removal for Scrapyard Recombiner, because that would allow us to get to our Armageddon. That works. Uptick a Johnny Vengeance on Blink Moth. Wrath of God. Oh man, Wrath of God into Armageddon. Only one-sided Armageddon. That's brutal. Uptick Gideon. Not that they have any haste creatures or anything. I guess I technically should have attacked, but I don't actually think that matters that much in the long run. I think that just delays our win by maybe a turn. Not even, because, like, just attacking with Gideon and Emrakul in the same turn kills our opponent. So, opponent plays a Hangerback Walker. Makes a Servo. Sure. We untap. We draw an Oust. Oust Hangerback. Man, making them redraw that would be great. They sack it in response so that they get a Thopter. Sure. Gain 1 life. Oust fizzles. Uptick Nahiri. Loot away Nahiri. Draw Maze Mind Tome. Alta Johnny. Say goodbye lands. Uptick Chad. Up to 9. Play Maze Mind Tome. And draw an additional card. Play Plains. Pass the turn. I guess I should be holding lands now, in case we do Armageddon again, but it's not likely we Armageddon twice in the same game. Okay, opponent plays an Ink Moth. They must attack Gideon. He goes to 7. We untap. We draw Chandra. Uptick Gideon. Draw a card. Loot away Cataracts. Play Chandra. I was actually going to add mana. I wasn't going to uptick for damage because of the Emrakul possibility. Alright, but opponent decides that they can't beat 3 active Planeswalkers after a 4th ulted, which would be very scary if they could. Alright, opponent does not play black or red permanents. Timely Reinforcements doesn't matter against our opponent's deck because half the time they're just going to combo kill us. They don't really use the graveyard. They don't cast spells on our turn. They don't play islands. Anger of the Gods half the time won't kill their creatures. They don't play anything that is white or blue. And Chandra the Awakened Inferno is way too expensive, so no sideboard. One moment. I have to get a package on my doorstep really quick. Alright, and I'm back. Opponent kept 7. We have 2 single target removal spells and a Wrath in our opener. This is basically a mulligan 6. You know what? I'm going to keep this. We're not destroying any lands, but we will have removal for at least the first couple creatures. Hopefully we can use it in a way that is strategic and valuable. Double Welding Jar tells me we may not, but my opponent might also have a really, really slow hand. Okay, I'm going to start by playing Sacred Foundry untapped. Pass the turn. Would like to draw an indestructible land here. Okay, opponent untaps. Plays a second Inkmoth Nexus into an Arcbound Worker. They're going to pay for Animation Module. Okay. Attempt to bolt. Need to start getting them to use these welding jars as soon as we can. Okay, opponent welding jars to protect the worker. Indestructible land, please. Not quite. I would like to use Boom, but I don't think I can. Because we're going to need the mana. I don't really think I can oust either. Not yet. Pass the turn. Opponent attacks us for 2. Plays a Walking Ballista on 1. Okay, we untap, we draw Rugged Prairie. Play Rugged Prairie. Pass the turn. I think we're just going to have to hard cast a Wrath. Our opponent could animate an Inkmoth in response to the Wrath and regenerate. Oh, no, it can't. Because this can, because it's Day of Judgment, not Wrath of God. Draw Cleansing Wildfire, which will be good. So play Needle Verge Pathway, just as is. Wrath of God? Or Day of Judgment? When it regenerates Walking Ballista, everything else dies. They modular, they can get another token. They don't pay for another token. Interesting. Oh, they're just going to activate to bring it up to a 3/3? Okay. Opponent untaps. They go to combat. They attack for 3. Take 3. Go to 9. We draw Maze Mind Tome. So start with an oust. Opponent puts another counter on it. Can't pay for the other trigger. I assume they ping us 3 times down to 6. 1, 2, 3. Okay. We let oust go through. So we'll play Maze Mind Tome. Scry. Relic to the bottom. Pass the turn. Opponent draws a card that is not Walking Ballista. It is a Llanowar Reborn. We're looking for a land, mostly. They don't activate Animation Module. They have something else that costs 3. Hangerback Walker on 1. Okay. So they move the counter there, it looks like. They don't. Alright. Well, we untap. Scry on our upkeep. Lightning Bolt to the bottom. We draw Sacred Foundry. Go down to 4. Play Gideon. Protect me, Chad! Uptick on our opponent. My opponent can put a Ballista on 3 next turn. Which almost kills us. It will kill us the turn after, I think. Nope, they kill us now. Because they can move that counter and 1 becomes 2 because of Hardened Scales. Yep. So we die. Oh well. We had a pretty slow opener here. Alright, moving on to game 3. No adjustments, I think. I think we just run it back. We're a lot better off on the play. Alright, we'll play first. Well, we have a Pillage, we have a Bolt, and we have a Maze Mind Tome. I'm actually thinking this is a good keep. Cleansing Wildfire is a great top deck. Boom's an okay top deck. Another red land is a good top deck. So start with Needle Verge Pathway, pass the turn. Opponent untaps. Starts Blink Moth Nexus, Animation Module. Sure. We untap. Draw red land, which is good. Play Flagstones, play Maze Mind Tome. Scry. Day of Judgment. I don't want to get rid of the Wrath, but we're a ways off of casting it, so I'm going to for now. Hopefully, Maze Mind Tome can scry us into something else while we pillage our opponent. We might have to pillage Ozolith because that's kind of a crazy start. Scry with Maze Mind Tome, Gemstone Caverns to the bottom, draw Gideon of the Trials, play a mountain. I'm gonna pillage a land. Hitting the Ozolith would be a big deal, but I think keeping them off of playing multiple things in a turn, as well as activating their animation modules, is the way we need to go for now. Okay, opponent plays a Ballista on 1. Can't pay for the triggers. We untap. We need to scry into a 4th land. Preferably a white land. Okay, plains to the top. Draw the plains. Start with Bolt Ballista. Okay, opponent didn't ping us. They put a counter on the Ozolith. Play plains. Play Gideon. Uptick on Blink Moth. Pass the turn. Okay, opponent's turn. Play Nurturing Peatland. Hardened Scales. Walking Ballista on 2. They move 2 counters to Walking Ballista. So Walking Ballista is now big enough to deal with Gideon. We untap. Maze Mind Tome. We'd like to find removal for Ballista. Gain 4. We scry Emrakul to the bottom. Draw Cleansing Wildfire. There's some notion we uptick on Ballista here. Yeah, I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to uptick on Ballista, which makes it not a problem until our next turn. Cleansing Wildfire ourself. Hopefully we can draw removal for Ballista still. Get a mountain. Draw a Lightning Bolt. Flagstones of Trocaire. Get a Sacred Foundry. Okay, pass the turn. Lightning Bolt can kill anything but Ballista at the moment. So if my opponent like animates a Blink Moth to make sure that Gideon is small enough to kill next turn or something like that. Alright, Welding Jar makes the plan a little bit worse. I sort of regret not pillaging the Ozolith. Okay, when it goes to combat, doesn't do anything. We untap. Draw Flagstones. Uptick on Ballista. Okay. Put a counter on Ballista. Can't pay for the animation modules. Play Nahiri. Uptick and loot. Loot away Nahiri. We draw Pillage, which is good. Play Flagstones. Pass the turn. Opponent plays another Walking Ballista. Okay. Animation module triggers. So my opponent's end step, we're going to Bolt Ballista. The opponent's going to regenerate it, sure. We untap. We draw Wrath of God. Uptick on Blink Moth. Uptick Nahiri. No discard. Play Wrath. So my opponent can put a million counters on the Ozolith, but theoretically can't kill us next turn. Opponent will have to ping down Nahiri basically to stop her from going and getting Emrakul. We have a big Gideon, but that doesn't really do anything. By removing the counters this way, they also don't go on the Ozolith. I could have maybe tricked my opponent into... No, we had to do it this way, because if we upticked on the Walking Ballista again, my opponent would have just stacked all the counters on Blink Moth, and I think that would have actually... Well, that we would have lost a Planeswalker either way, but... That's 3 Walking Ballistas in the grave. Opponent plays a Llanowar Reborn. They get a Servo. They move the counter over, so they're going to get 2 counters on that servo and then 2 more servos. Alright, let's see what we top deck. Get another Pillage. Pillage Ozolith. Pillage Blinkmoth. I guess I should have pillaged the servo so they don't have counters to move around with animation module. But uptick on the servo. We have more wraths for that, theoretically. This is the longest game versus Harden, the longest match versus Harden scales I've ever had. Okay, but it plays another Llanowar Reborn. Makes a servo. Moves the counter, makes 2 more servos. We need to draw another Wrath. Sweltering Suns here would do it as well. Okay, they hit Gideon for 2. Gideon goes to 6. We untap, we draw. Big Gideon's here to help make little Gideon harder to kill. We could taunt all the creatures, but I actually think it's better to downtick, destroy this one. Uptick, prevent this one from doing damage. They can swing all out at Big Gideon to kill him. They can also put another counter on that servo to get 1 extra servo. We're just stalling, though. We need to get some way to end the game. Inkmoth Nexus is a little scary. Yeah, that was the only time we were going to be able to make that play with Big Gideon. When it hits Gideon for 4, Big Gideon down. We untap. We draw Flagstones. Play Flagstones, keep the new one, thin our deck. Get a Sacred Foundry. Uptick on the servo. F6. So, Anger of the Gods, I don't think, or not Anger of the Gods, but Sweltering Suns, I think, no longer does it. Sweltering Suns does it if we can have Gideon stay alive, but I don't think he stays alive here. Oh, we need a Wrath. We need Wrath so badly. Opponent plays a Gem Razor. Okay, Gideon's down. We need to draw a true Wrath here. So they can attack Gideon and then attack us for 1. Okay, Wrath or bust. Not a Wrath. Play a Mountain. I guess I should have held it in hand if we drew Nahiri, but we are going to be very dead very quickly. Opponent sacks Nurturing Peatland to draw a card. They untap, they play a Forest. Play a second Hardened Scales. Put a bunch of counters on that servo. Make another servo. They hit us for 17, we go to 6. Okay, Wrath or bust. Bolt. And we concede. That was really close. Alright, I'll see you guys in round 5. Alrighty, round 5. Had to finish recording this next day, and it's a little bit rough. I'm behind schedule. There was no coffee anywhere in the house this morning, because I forgot to buy more after running out yesterday. So, that's what I'm dealing with. Alright, this looks pretty good. I'm gonna keep this. I was debating about putting back a Cleansing Wildfire, but I think putting back Sacred Foundry is fine. Okay, opponent starts Mountain, passes, we draw Boom. On the off chance we're playing against Land Destruction, I'm gonna play Flagstones. This would be the one time that I'm against a 2-2 deck that's playing like Aki Blizzard Herder. Anyway, opponent is playing Jengatha and is apparently mono red. I've never seen such a deck. Gigantha. I keep saying Jengatha, but the N is in a different part of that word. Gigantha. Okay, we get stomped. We will use Flagstone of Trocair's ability to get a Sacred Foundry tapped. And pass the turn. Play Cascading Cataracts, and now we'll boom again. Oh, actually, let's just pillage. The good news is, Our hard land destruction's actually pretty decent, because they don't actually have that many lands in the deck. And now their mana is painful to them. Okay, we untap, draw Wrath of God. So we will start with a Cleansing Wildfire on ourself. We'll use its ability. We'll get a Mountain. We draw an Oust. Play Gemstone Caverns. And boom away their last land. Alright. Mana destroyed. Play Chandra. Tick up for mana. Cleansing Wildfire ourself. Get another Mountain. We draw an Oust. Pass the turn. That Bone Crusher Giant's on a very long adventure. Okay, opponent plays a Swift Spear. Hits Chandra for 1. Sure. We untap and draw Cleansing Wildfire. Yeah, let's uptick for damage. Okay, cast Lightning Bolt. Cleansing Wildfire ourself. Get a Plains. Play Cascading Cataracts. Pass the turn. I think it is at this point we're going to start holding on to lands in hand unless they're indestructible. We draw Day of Judgment. Let's draw a card. Okay, we deal 2 damage because we hit Sacred Foundry. Pass the turn because we have no instants. Opponent bolts Chandra. So in addition to destroying all of their lands to start, we had to make them waste 7 points of burn killing a Planeswalker. Speaking of, play Planeswalker. I am going to loot away 1 Wrath of God effect. Ooh, another Boom and Bust. Alright, pass the turn. If they can't kill Nahiri, I'm probably just going to Armageddon. Especially if they play a land. There's a land. Oust is like extra punishing when you're blowing up lands. Oh, Blood Moon. Alright, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If we blow up lands, we are not going to have lands for a long period of time. So let's uptick. We're going to discard Wrath of God, because we don't have double planes. Play Maze Mind Tome. Bust. So, Blood Moon's a little bit worse for us because it takes away our indestructible on our lands. But we have 3 1-mana removal spells, which are fantastic, and we can scry to hopefully find a land. Okay, uptick Nahiri. Discard Relic. Play Darksteel Citadel. Pass the turn. We have an Artifact Mountain. Should have bolted that at the end step, but wasn't thinking. So cast Lightning Bolt before we get Emrakul, because Emrakul will turn that back into a colorless land by getting rid of Blood Moon. Okay, opponent loses their only land. And Blood Moon. Okay, we draw Gideon. Scry first, I guess. Nahiri to the bottom. Loot away Emrakul. Now we have a bunch more lands in our deck to draw. Pass the turn. Opponent should not be able to kill us with 1 mana, even if they've got it. Draw a Mountain. Uptick Nahiri. Discard Wrath of God. Usually I don't like land destruction versus decks like Burn, because their threats are so low to the ground that, like, oftentimes it won't matter. I'm gonna discard Gideon. I don't think we need him. Play a Mountain. New plan. Pillage. Pass the turn. This must be miserable for our opponent to play against. Uptick. We will discard Oust. Play Flagstones. Cleansing Wildfire Flagstones. Get a Plains. And then Flagstones. Get a Sacred Foundry. Pass the turn. Alright, let's just finish him off with the Lightning Bolt, because Emrakul takes too long. Okay, versus Burn. Let's bring in Timely Reinforcements. Anger of the Gods. And let's drop Relic. I'm trying to think of what we have that's worst against Burn. We may not need Sweltering Suns with the addition of 2 Angers. I kind of want to keep Cleansing Wildfire, because getting to 4 faster versus Burn is a big deal. We could drop 1 mana removal, but I'm also not willing to do that. I think I'm actually going to drop 1 Hard Wrath and Pillage. Run it back. Opponent is on the play this time. Okay, I'm going to keep this because of multiple land destruction spells and multiple flagstones. When it starts Bomb at Courier, really hoping we draw Bolt. We don't. Play Sacred Foundry tapped. Pass the turn. Gotta keep our opponent off of Blood Moon mana. They did not reveal Gigantha, so like they've got something that they've sideboarded into the deck that has multiple of the same mana symbol. It also means we don't have to worry about oh, what's it called? Eidolon in the main deck. Let's go ahead and boom. Get a Sacred Foundry. Pass the turn. Opponent plays a Spikefield Cave. Into another Bombat Courier. Come on, Anger of the Gods. There it is. Still want to blow up a land because I don't want them to play Blood Moon, but I think denying them their entire board is probably better. We can still blow up lands at the cost of our own lands if they land a Blood Moon. And we can still Cleansing Wildfire for a white source. So it's not like it's particularly bad or anything. So, play a Mountain. Cleansing Wildfire. Get a Plains. Draw Darksteel Citadel. Pass the turn. We're going to save this for 6 mana Destroy All Lands. Especially considering how many lands our opponent is drawing. Play Darksteel Citadel. We can take up Chandra with relative impunity because we don't have to worry about hitting Emrakul. Which I think is the one downside of this deck, and not something that should happen that often, but happens to me a lot for some reason. Opponent plays a land. Stomps Chandra. Bolts Chandra. Okay. We draw Gideon of the Trials that we can't play. Play Flagstones, pass the turn. Kind of hoping they top deck like a 1-drop and play Bone Crusher. That way we get maximum value out of Sweltering Suns. Yeah, they play Bone Crusher. We draw Nahiri. Cast Sweltering Suns. If we draw a land, we can play Nahiri, downtick on Blood Moon, and play Gideon to like fog a creature if they have one. They stomp us again. They play a Bone Crusher Giant. We untap and draw Flagstones. Play Nahiri. Exile Blood Moon. That kind of unlocks Bust next turn, because one of our Planeswalkers should survive. Uptick Fog Bone Crusher. Pass the turn. They sack Fiery Islet to draw a card. They play a land. And they pass. We draw Timely Reinforcements. Uptick Nahiri. Discard Emrakul. Draw Cascading Cataracts. Shuffle everything back in. Fog Bone Crusher. This is indestructible, so we can play it out beforehand. Blow up all lands. Okay, Flagstones can go get a Sacred Foundry. We're gonna untap, fog their creature, play Timely Reinforcements. Yeah, this game is over. Okay, opponent plays a Spikefield Cave. We untap and draw a Mountain. Uptick here. Uptick Nahiri, no discard. Play Mountain. Play Timely. Pass the turn. Opponent draws another Mountain, plays a Magmatic Channeler. We untap. We draw a Lightning Bolt. Bolt Channeler, because it has non-attacking value. Fog Bone Crusher. Uptick Nahiri to 8. Attack for 3. They can block 1, but it doesn't do any damage. They go to 15, and they are dead to Emrakul if we untap. They play Soul Scar Mage. We are about to get the flawless victory with Emrakul. Go to combat. Nice. Alright. Let's go ahead and open up that treasure chest. and then we'll take a quick look at the deck and talk about it versus previous versions of the deck. We get a Borborygmos from Original Rav, and 20 play points. So, I like Little Gideon in this list. Double white is hard when your opponents are playing Blood Moon, but I mean, at the same time, I don't think that matters that much. Frequently, we'll just blow up the lands, or we'll play Nahiri and get rid of Blood Moon. And Bust felt even better in this version of this deck. Pretty frequently, like, I think I cast Bust more this league than I did in any other league. And the kinds of planeswalkers that we would have resolved on board after blowing up all lands was just ridiculous. I like Oust in addition, because if you're blowing up lands, one of the like if you take them off of 3 mana and you put a 3 mana card back in their deck, that's one extra time they're not drawing a land, which just feels extra brutal. Not to mention the life gain versus things like Shadow matters. I know we didn't play against Shadow, but like it could matter versus Shadow the most. Gideon of the Trials being able to fog one big creature, or having the like you can't lose the game as long as you have a Gideon Planeswalker, also feels kind of good. And I really like the addition of Maze Mind Tome. Maze Mind Tome is exactly the kind of card this deck wants. It's something that you can play early off of no colors of mana. It provides value either in the form of finding you cards you need, or just drawing you more cards in general. It's good after we blow up lands, especially after we Armageddon, because all of our lands are mostly colorless. So it can draw us into lands that are colored. And yeah, I like this version of the deck a lot better. The sideboard also feels a lot cleaner than the last one I was playing, but that's all the time I have to talk about this deck. I've got to rush to get this video edited and get it out today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this deck. I know I did. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined, and remember you can follow me on Twitch. Same username over there as you find me on here. I stream Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Both of those are American time zones for my foreign viewers, because we do have a few people from Europe that do watch me and do watch this channel. Yeah, I hope to see you guys at the streams, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye!